Fun fact, forensic entomology has helped solve hundreds of murder cases worldwide.
So essentially, maggots are doing more for society than some people.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of Forensic Fails, Season 1, Episode 10, Insect Clues. I'm Brian.
And I'm Kristen. Don't forget, if you are enjoying this podcast, please be sure to follow and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform, leave us a 5-star review, and tell a friend. It'll not only help ensure that you don't miss an episode, but it will also help ensure that others will find our show too.
And we now have a Patreon with 3 different levels. For just $5 a month, that's our Dr. Henry Lee level, you'll get our weekly pre-pod pod. That's our before show where we shoot the shit, give some hot takes, and share some moronic miscreants, some of the most ridiculous crimes and criminals you can think of, plus at least one bonus episode a month on a true crime or true crime adjacent show or documentary.
And for just $5 more, that's $10 a month, you can join us at our Sir Alec Jeffries level. You get everything we talked about at the $5 level, plus early and ad-free access to all episodes.
And the penultimate patrons can join us at the $15 level. That's our Peter Thomas level. You get everything we just talked about, plus you will get recognized by name. Yes, shout it out as a Peter Thomas level patron on our show and in our show notes.
To join our Patreon, go to www.patreon.com/forensicfailspod. And don't worry if you didn't write that down. We'll have it all for you in the show notes.
Now, just in case you are wondering what happened to the Deadly Neighborhoods episode, this is not a mistake. We deliberately skipped this episode.
As you might recall, we recently covered Legionnaire's disease, which was less true crime and more medical mystery. And while we enjoyed covering it, it was more in the medical mystery realm versus the true crime realm, much like Deadly Neighborhoods. And we are trying to balance us wanting to do a Forensic Files recap podcast with the fact that we do want this to be a true crime podcast.
So we have therefore decided that we are generally going to skip episodes that are pure medical mystery with no crime elements. We may decide at some point to go back to them, and we may decide to cover some, but in general, this is the path that we decided to take moving forward.
Yes. So our show today, Insect Clues, aired on November 28th, 1996. The crime committed took place in July of 1998. 1988. I'm sorry. 1988. I am just way ahead of myself here.
It's okay.
In July of 1988, the body of 42-year-old Sanda Swick was discovered in a remote area near Buckman Springs, California, outside of San Diego. She had been murdered, but her body was not found for several days and was covered in maggots. Forensic entomologist David Faulkner's analysis of the fly species found at the recovery site provided crucial time of death evidence. This compelling evidence ultimately led to the conviction of her murderer. So our episode begins with what I can only describe as sleazy music. It's that loungy electric guitar, almost whining type of music that basically just says bad things are going to happen. And this is accompanied by footage of a young woman who I am assuming we are to think are sex workers walking up and down the streets of California.
Yeah, so Forensic Files repeatedly makes it known whenever we are in the seedy part of town because we see B-roll footage of neon lights, what I too assume are supposed to be sex workers, and that electric guitar riff that just screams seedy. We have to describe what this sounds like. So to me, it sounds like Meow, 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 meow.
Yeah, it's definitely got this like just it's bad.
Yeah, like
It's just
almost
bad.
like porn kind of
Yes, it's
sounding.
got a very
Yeah.
not that we know from experience, but what I would assume porn music sounds like.
Yes, that's what I've heard.
So Peter opens our show by telling us that between the years of 1985 and 1988, 18 women, whom he describes as, quote, transients, hitchhikers, and prostitutes, were attacked in the desert mountains of California. These women were choked, sexually assaulted, and left for dead. And in his calming yet dramatic tone, he informs us that the insects at the crime scene were witnesses to the crimes and also evidence. Our victims were all left in the high desert mountain of San Diego, an area I have never visited, and after watching this episode, makes me once again delighted with my non-outdoorsy life because this place looks like a complete breeding ground for deadly creepy crawlers and snakes. Ew.
And actually, it just is dawning on me that I will actually be in San Diego in a few weeks for work, but I will not be visiting
Please stay out of that
the
area.
desert area, especially on my own.
Good.
So I'm actually feeling vibes very similar to our planted evidence episode, right?
Same. Yes.
We have sex work, we have deserts, and we have my second least favorite biology topic, entomology, or the study of insects. But both times nature solves the case for us. So a pod from a Palo Verde tree solved it last time, and this time it'll be an insect. Now, we also see footage of a praying mantis eating what I am assuming to be a housefly for an uncomfortably long period of time. Like, way too long, right? They're really just showing you just rip this little fucker apart. Speaking of which, do you remember growing up and being told it was illegal to kill them? Do you remember this? Okay.
Yes.
Apparently that's an urban legend. That's actually not true. If it's not encouraged. Like,
okay.
You should not kill them because they are beneficial, but it's actually not a crime. But I growing up, right? That was a big thing. Like, oh my God, you're going to get sent away if you kill a praying mantis. Right?
We were told a lot of crazy things as kids, like don't swallow watermelon pits because the watermelon's going to grow in your stomach.
It'll grow in your stomach. Yeah, absolutely. And we're also back to the old opening, the old title sequence. Did you notice that?
I didn't.
Yes, it was the old one. I was like, what's happening? So I honestly think now part of this is the fact that I don't think I trust to order the episodes anywhere, right? So, I mean, we just talked about this recently too. So they're ordered one way on Tubi, one way on Pluto, another way on YouTube, a different way on Wikipedia. So like, who knows? Perhaps this is actually earlier on in the series. The ghost of Peter Thomas is just effing with us right now.
Has to be.
Right? There's no other explanation. No other explanation.
Oh, my goodness. Anyway, all these women, right? The women who were attacked, not all of them died as a result. And all of the survivors seem to have a similar story about what had happened to them. District Attorney Jeff Dusek tells what was done to these women. And in a word, it is just horrendous. Because many of the victims survived the attack were found unconscious, at that point, they weren't really sure if any, quote, sexual assault had occurred. Now, I'm not a legal expert, and I'm not sure what their definition of sexual assault was at the time. But to me, it is any unwanted forced activity. To me, once that magic word no is said, anything after that is assault, period.
Absolutely.
Betty Bass. Betty Bass joins us. Peter lets us know that she is currently homeless as of 1996, and she has a history of mental problems, which, going by what she went through at the hands of the suspect, I can't say I'm surprised or blame her at all. So the footage we see of Betty in 1996 shows a rather delightful, friendly, open, smiling woman greeting the people she passes on the street and seems completely grateful for the life that she has. There's no anger, there's no woe is me attitude. She seems like the kind of woman who sees the positive in each sunrise, and my heart just immediately warms to her.
Same.
She tells us clearly about her encounter with the mystery perp. 8 years ago, she left a hotel, and by the looks of it, in the shot that they show us, it is a 0-star kind of place on Yelp. So I, of course, looked it up. It is now called the Time Travel Motel. The website has it looking clean and fresh, and even states they have custom mattresses. But
Fancy.
the Yelp reviews are less than stellar. There's bed bugs, bad parking, 2 stars for the friendly staff, but many mentions of cash payment preferred. I'll pass. So, Time Travel Motel, not an ad, and should not be.
Absolutely. A good old no-tell motel.
Yes.
Did they advertise hourly rates?
They did not, but by
Okay.
cash payment, I'm guessing that it's not outside the realm of possibility.
Yeah, because it looked like in the footage it was known as the sign said Time Motel. I didn't see the
Yeah.
word travel there. And I was thinking, what a stupid name for a motel, the Time Motel. And then I noticed it also said drive-in. And I'm like,
Yeah.
drive in where? Like drive straight into your room? Like, is there a movie theater there? Like, what is happening? And and I also want to talk about the reenactment of Betty leaving the motel.
Okay.
Let's please talk about that. Okay. So she leaves the motel to hitch a ride.
Mhm.
And instead of a reenactment in front of that motel, or at least in front of a motel, or
Mhm.
honestly, any building in a seedy part of any town,
Mhm.
she is shown hitching a ride in front of what looks like an office building that it could be in a Matt Cali corporate office building park in Parsippany, New Jersey. Like, honestly, I think I used to work in this office building that she's shown leaving from. This is not a motel, and this is not a seedy part of town. It is
No.
suburbia.
No, it's like they cleaned up the reenactment for whatever reason.
Yeah.
I've
Again,
stopped trying to figure out their reenactments by like episode 3.
fast and loose.
Right. So Betty leaves the hotel and is looking for a ride to Ramona, California. A man in a silver car, and I'm not a car person, so I don't know if it's a Honda or a Corolla or a Datsun, but he picks her up and he offers to take her to El Centro. So she hops in and off they go. And our reenactment shows the two of them cruising along a desert mountainy area when the driver decides to pull over to answer the call of nature in the great outdoors, as you do.
Excuse you, not only does the driver tell Betty he needs to pee, you forgot to mention that we again hear the seedy guitar riff.
Wah,
So
wah, wah.
we know something bad is about to happen.
Absolutely. So instead of peeing, he moves around to the passenger side, reaches in, and starts choking our girl, Betty. She passes out. And when she wakes up, she is lying in the dirt. She manages to climb up a hill, over a fence, and crosses the highway where a family in a motorhome stops to help her.
Betty is very lucky to have survived that attack and find someone to help. Those deserts are like nothingness. And we see it's quite a cliff that she has to go down to get to the road. It was super steep.
Yeah, I would have broken my neck. No questions about it.
Insane, yeah.
So the family brings her to the hospital where she tells police what happened to her. The police explain to us that the crime scene is a place they go to examine. They start pointing out tire tracks where some of Betty's clothes were found. They photograph the area and collect evidence at the scene, including 2 cigarette butts. Marlboro, in case you wanted to know. Her shirt had a tiny red fiber on it, most likely from the interior of the car. And I'm assuming that they're telling us this because it's going to prove to be important later on in our story. Now, 1 month earlier, a similar attack occurred. This time it was 2 girls, a similar MO. They ask for a ride. The driver offers to take them to El Centro. They go, and then they are attacked.
So the reenactment footage of the 2 young lady hitchhikers Here, at least, they include some accurate-ish B-roll of an area that actually looks seedy.
Mm-hmm.
We see a 24-hour diner with Sally's Special advertised out front. Eggs, ham, coffee for $1.99. My first thought is, like, no toast. Can a brother get a carb around here? Also, cue the seedy electric guitar riff.
Wah, 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 wah. Wow. Also, in case you're wondering, the reenactment driver, serial killer glasses are on his face. Dear listeners, please, for the love of all that is holy, please do not accept rides from men wearing serial killer glasses.
Or anyone who says, I can take you as far as El Centro.
El Centro does not seem like a place I want to visit now.
No.
Okay. So our scene then jumps to one of our girls climbing out of the front of an 18-wheeler, and she appears anxious, disoriented, just a complete mess, which, given the circumstances, is completely understandable. Now, at first, I really wasn't sure where the 18-wheeler was fitting in here. Like, was this where she was assaulted and escaped from? But then it occurred to me maybe this driver picked her up and brought her to the nearest phone. Anyway, she enters a restaurant and no one even seems to blink at this panicked girl with makeup running down her face who runs to the phone. She calls 911 and reports what happens, and the diners are just sitting there enjoying their fucking tuna melts. I mean, I'm also wondering if this is a place that has like a bowl of those buttermints at the register when you go to check out. I love those things.
Oh, hell yes. Buttermints are amazing and highly underrated. I will skip the bowl of Starlight Mints every time, but buttermints, yes, please.
Yes.
So now, Kristen, you know how I love paying attention to addresses, don't you?
I do.
Okay. So this reenactment includes footage of what is supposed to be a 911 call coming into a switchboard, except that switchboard I noticed is in PA, Pennsylvania, not CA, California.
Huh.
It actually shows the address of 3350 MacArthur in Whitehall, which is Pennsylvania, and is now the home of Affordable Pet Vaccines Incorporated, which, if you're listening, advertise with us. But for now, you get it free.
Okay. So the reenactment also focuses on the friend who also survives, and they show her waking up in a wooded, plant-ridden area looking equally scared and confused. Both of our victims give a description, and Forensic Files kind of drops the image into the screen piece by piece. The first piece, serial killer glasses. He is described as a man in his early 40s with blondish graying hair and glasses. So pretty much half of the male population in that age group. Talk about a needle in a haystack. Now, District Attorney Jeff is back on our screen, and he is pissing me off because he says, quote, obviously, these are people that are going to take rides from anyone. Excuse you, douche canoe. How about some fucking empathy here? I have a feeling that this guy meets up with Green Shirt for beers every Thursday.
Kristen, do you by chance have an open seat next to you on the rage train?
I sure do.
Because I would like to make myself comfortable here with you. Same note on this guy. So fucking judgmental and unempathetic. It was not a necessary comment whatsoever.
No. And he's the district attorney.
Yeah.
He's not defending the perpetrator.
Right.
Or anything like that. He's supposed to be helping these
on the
women.
side of these people. Yes.
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 Yep.
You know how I feel about that stuff.
Totally. Yep.
Okay. So we meet Roger Boheron, criminal investigator, also wearer of plastic serial killer glasses. And he explains that all of the victims said similar things about their conversations with the driver. Quote, almost like he was reading a script. Almost? No, dude, he was totally using a script. DA Jeff explains that the driver has a, quote, type. He looks for, quote, the vulnerable people of society. So basically, women who are what they would consider easy targets and who he assumes might not be missed if they disappear. Peter's back to tell us what we already know, that a sexual predator was loose in the mountains of California. We jump to July 21st, 1988, where detectives are called to Sheep's Head Mountain, expecting what Peter refers to as another choke and dump case. I mean, really, Forensic Files writers? Really? That is just so crass and unnecessary.
And Peter's using the term, quote, choke and dump crime scene as if that's an accepted term. Is it? Because I looked it up and honestly couldn't find it being a thing, but maybe it is.
Yeah, I don't know. It just rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah.
And this time, our victim did not survive. And oh my God, this is just so awful. It is so graphic. The photos that we are shown are literally the stuff of nightmares. Sandra Swick, she is our victim. She was found on her back, nude from the waist down. Her body had been there a while, so it was starting to decompose. It is bloated. It is burnt from the sun. And it is currently the home of a family of maggots. Note to self, do not eat while watching this show.
Yeah, generally not a good idea, but especially for this episode, our poor victim, Sandra, almost looks blue.
Right.
Although they say she's brown, she's clearly decomposing, but it just isn't needed to see this much and see it so often. I mean, I lost count of the number of times we will see her body, the number of times we will see parts of her body very much up close. And again, I don't care that she was maybe unhoused or transient, which is a term that they used a lot back then. At the end of the day, she was a human who deserves some dignity.
Exactly. The detectives find a blood trail, and it is a mile long, and it led from the body to a point on the mountain that gives them the impression that while alive, she walked from her attack point, fell, and then died. The maggots on her body were collected and brought to the lab and were stored in a Fleischmann's margarine tub, which made me wonder if they still sell that. I was never a fan of margarine.
Yeah, me neither. But I feel like we all ate that in the 80s, right? That's when cholesterol awareness became a big thing and everyone was staying away from butter. We were all convinced margarine was healthier. I remember distinctly we were a Promise Extra Light family. What about you, Kristen? Did you guys actually use margarine or were you butter people?
We were butter people. Yeah.
Wow, I'm jealous.
Yeah.
No, we were margarine people. It turns out we never used Fleischmann's. They do still make Fleischmann's margarine, though I prefer Fleischmann's for yeast.
I use Fleischmann's yeast, yes.
Yes. But I was wondering, though, like margarine containers, police department, like don't you have official like police type things to collect evidence in? It just reminded me of growing up, like opening up margarine containers or ricotta containers in the fridge, and good chance it was neither margarine nor ricotta.
I'm wondering if the police department was run by old Italian grandmas.
It might have been. It might have been. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I was waiting for the polio container to show up.
So Peter, he of the rhetorical questions, asks us if the maggots will be able to tell the investigators something about the crime. My Gil Grissom of CSI knowledge tells me that yes. Yes, they will.
My wife could not watch this episode with all these critters. I had to make sure she was nowhere around.
I don't blame her.
She doesn't do worms. She doesn't do maggots. She can't even hear the word maggot, actually. Like she can't. You can't say that word around her. But they honestly spend way too much time also on close-ups, not only of our poor victim, but on maggots. Like, okay, like we get it.
Point made.
Yep.
Exactly. John Eisel, medical examiner, also wearing serial killer glasses. That's 3 pairs so far, in case you were keeping track.
Noted.
Tells us that Sandra didn't die by strangulation. She died due to blood loss caused by lacerations in her vagina. And hearing this actually brought tears to my eyes. And I had to stop watching for a while and look at videos of puppies on Facebook to recenter myself.
I mean, to die from blood loss is bad enough.
Mhm.
To die from blood loss due to lacerations in the vagina is just so horrible to hear. And I am just praying at this point that they find the monster who could have inflicted such harm.
I mean, as a woman, that is just such a horrific thing to hear.
Oh,
And the images of what she must have gone through, I
yeah,
I can't.
terrible.
So Sandra's body was found in an area close to many of the other victims, off the main highway in a secluded area. 3 months after Sandra was found, Deputy Larry Daly, and when I hear deputy, I can only follow that in my head with Dewey from Scream. Deputy Daly is on patrol in that area, and he sees a car leaving a deserted side road. Does he follow it? No, he does not. But by not following it, he discovers a woman lying in the dirt. She is unconscious and in a similar situation like Sandra, nude from the waist down, choked, shirt pulled up. So Deputy Daly calls for an ambulance and informs police about the car he saw skedaddling away from the area. And it doesn't take long for a silver Honda to be pulled over by a patrolman who heard the description. Now, for some reason, our real-time interview jumps to journalist Frank Klimko, who is pretty much a Temu version of Sex Pistol Johnny Rotten. He tells us that he wanted to see some sort of three-armed monster. Okay. And also, we never see him again in the show.
Which is unfortunate. And we need to pause on journalist Frank Klimko, because journalist Frank Klimko is a lot.
Yeah.
A lot. I could see Johnny Rotten.
Yeah.
I had in my notes that he clearly goes to Rod Stewart's hairstylist. But between the hair and the three-armed monster comment, I was intrigued. So I stalked him. I needed to know everything there was about Frank Klimko. I wanted to know his journalism, because they didn't say where he was a journalist. They said journalist.
No, journalist.
Right? Yeah, journalist. Okay, journalist.
And he was literally on the screen for what? All of 5 seconds?
Yes, just to tell us he wanted to see a three-armed or three-headed, whatever it was, monster. Okay.
Okay, so what'd you find out?
I found him on LinkedIn. Okay. Frank was staff writer for the San Diego Tribune from 1988 to 2000. So this would have been early on in his career, right?
Okay.
He is now editor at CD Publications, not SEEDY, CD like our electric guitar riffs, but the letters CD. Yeah. In his About Me section, Mr. Klimko says, I am a high-energy, enthusiastic, and dependable individual who excels in challenging and competitive environments, well-versed in AP style. I coordinated a computer-assisted reporting newspaper investigation in the aftermath of the Heaven's Gate suicide cult in San Diego. Side note, we will need to cover Heaven's Gate on the Patreon.
Oh, we're covering all the cults.
Right. We both are big cult fans. Yeah. I mean, just to clarify, cults
we're
not a
not
good
looking
thing.
to join one, but we are fascinated by the idea.
We're fascinated by cults.
Yes.
Kind of by cults and high control groups. Absolutely. All right. Continuing on, stories were able to debunk some of the myths around cults. Series of stories were also nominated for the Pulitzer Prize. I'm the editor of the Centerville Independent, a hyperjournalism website. I don't know what hyperjournalism means.
I don't either. I'm going to have to look that one up.
Yeah, that covers Centerville, parentheses, Virginia, Chantilly, and Fair Lakes. This link will provide good examples of my work. CentervilleIndependent.com. As part of that job, I manage a staff of freelance writers, monthly columnists, and interns. Also, I keep track of our editorial calendar. Website, unfortunately, doesn't work. No LinkedIn post in the past 9 years. So, yeah, that was a little bit about a little side story on Klimko, because he was a character that we didn't get enough of. And as soon as he opened his mouth and as soon as I saw him, I needed to know more.
Yeah.
And
I'm glad you did all that, because I'm not a LinkedIn person.
Okay.
As a teacher, I have zero use for it. Yeah, I've had one job.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm going to be excited.
Since I became a teacher, one job, one district. That's it.
Well, you can see when people look at your profile, right? And LinkedIn gives you a certain number of, like, they'll tell you, like, they'll name the person, but they'll only do a few. And then after that, you have to be a premium. It'll just say, like, somebody from New Jersey or somebody at this company viewed your profile. So it would be funny if, like, he opens it up and it says, like, that I viewed his profile and then tries to connect with me, and I become, like, friends with Frank Limco.
Oh, he could be a guest on the pod.
I'll keep you posted.
All right, thanks.
Yeah.
I'm guessing, though, the reason they used that clip of him about the 3-armed monster was for impact, so that when we actually see the driver of the car, we're all kind of shocked at just how basic and dull he appears to be in his photo.
Very much
also, serial killer glasses are in place. That's number 4, by the way.
For those keeping track at home.
The driver of the car, his name is Ronald Porter, and he is a 41-year-old mechanic who happens to have a history of sexual offenses. Did I look them up? Of course I did. In 1987, he was arrested for assaulting Annette Russell. He beat and stabbed her and was caught in the act by the police and was eventually sentenced to 4 years. Also, according to what I could find, he was also a former Marine. And based on this picture of him, he might be the least Marine-y looking Marine I have ever seen in my life. This time, the victim survives, and she is able to identify old Ronnie as her attacker. He admits to it, but he refuses to accept responsibility for any of the other crimes. The cops, and at this point, I'm guessing everybody at home watching this, think he's lying. So now, the San Diego Police Department call in the FBI to help them out. I love when the FBI gets called in. I don't know why I get such a thrill, but it's almost like, all right, guys, the experts are here. We're going to clean this up in the next 15 minutes. So we meet Special Agent Larry Ankrum. He is our FBI agent du jour. He's here to tell us that based on the details of the crimes, that chances were good that this is one person committing the crimes. And then he goes on to explain that these weren't chance pickups, that the perpetrator basically scouted the area and watched to see who he would be able to abduct, which I find insanely frightening. You're just going about your regular day, not knowing that somebody is basically stalking the area you are in and decide you might be his next target. That is scary beyond words. So now that the FBI has said their piece, the San Diego Police Department needs to prove that Ronnie is their guy. And all the evidence they have collected kind of points to him, but there's a bit of a problem. Because for some of these crimes, the statute of limitation has passed. And that makes me so mad.
I got so pissed also when I heard that this guy might get away with some of these crimes due to statute of limitations. So I get why there are statutes of limitations in place for certain crimes, but I don't like it when bad guys get away. And especially in cases of sexual abuse, assault, trafficking, anything where the victims are often very vulnerable members of society. Now, luckily, this is changing, though, it seems. I did a little research, and California's statute of limitations for sexual assault has changed a lot in recent years, and mostly in favor of survivors. For adult survivors filing civil cases, the general rule is now 10 years from the assault or 3 years from when the harm is discovered. For child victims, the window is much longer. For older cases, survivors can usually file until age 40 or within 5 years of discovering the impact of the abuse. But for abuse occurring on or after January 1st, 2024, there's no civil statute of limitations at all. On the criminal side, many serious felony sexual assaults, including forcible rape after 27, have no statute of limitations. So at least we're seeing some positive momentum with regards to the statute of limitations that is in favor of victims.
Yeah, I was Very fired up when I heard the whole statute of limitations thing, because my whole thing is, if you are the victim of a crime, no matter what that crime is, you should have the right to justice.
Yep.
I don't care how much time has passed. And I did ask around, and I was told that in New Jersey, anything involving a sexual incident or a murder charge, there is no statute of limitations, which makes me proud to be in
Great.
New Jersey.
Yes, that's right.
But yeah, I just feel like a crime is a crime. It doesn't matter when it was committed. You know, if it's able to be solved, there should be justice involved. So,
Yep.
But here's what this means for our story. It means that the only crime that they can actually get Ronnie for, and where they can get charges that can stick, is the murder of Sandra. Now, here's another problem we run into. All the evidence they can find at the site of the murder, it's all circumstantial. It's a tire track. It's a shoe print. And even Porter's lawyer calls it inconclusive, and that anybody with shoes like that could have left that print. There was no blood. There were no hair fibers. There was nothing, no semen, nothing that could concretely link Porter to the murder of Sandra.
Right. So we have carpet fiber evidence here, and we see the inside of the car, which is that cranberry maroon red that was, again, all the rage in the 80s. I think we've talked about this in some other episodes.
Yes.
With regards to the tire print, I do find it a little bit weird and problematic that the tire print matches the spare Michelin in the trunk of the car and not the tire print itself.
Yes.
That was an interesting point that they made. And to your point about the attorney, he commented, quote, "A similar tennis shoe print is inconclusive." And he stated, 5 million people with similar shoes with similar treads could also have made the print, which is very true, of course. And one of the problems with evidence like this, though obviously the more points that line up with the suspect, right? The more prints that line up with the suspect, whether it's, treads on a sneaker or treads on a tire, the greater the probability that it is him, because after a while, what are the chances?
Right. Of course, there's also the issue of not really knowing when Sandra was murdered. So figuring out the time of death, according to our medical examiner, John, is not an exact science due to the changes that the body goes through after death. They can figure out a general time, but lots of things can affect the way the body decomposes, especially when it's exposed to the elements of nature. And this is where the maggots come into play. Also, Forensic Files, please stop showing close-ups of Sandra's teeth and mouth. We saw it once. That was more than enough. We get it.
Definitely stop showing close-ups of the victim, and also stop showing close-ups of maggots. Again, we get it.
Yes, you made your point. We meet David Faulkner. He is a forensic entomologist, which is an expert in the area of bugs on dead bodies. And he's here to explain what's up with the maggots. Also, serial killer glasses number 5.
Yeah, and it is kind of interesting because, they said, well, he's an expert on insect activity on dead bodies, which is such a specific thing to specialize in if you think about it. Like, all right, what do you want to be when you grow up, little David? An expert in the area of bugs on dead bodies.
Never in my life have I ever heard anybody say they want to do that. But at the end of this episode, aren't we glad they exist?
We sure are.
So the first thing David needs to do is figure out the age of the maggots. He soaks them in alcohol, where they transform into adults, and he can compare them to other flies from his large draw of fly models. And I'm really hoping they're models and not real flies.
It was like a old school library, like card catalog, but with flies.
Yes. So apparently, these flies are known as sarcophaga flies, also known as flesh flies. Ew. And he tells us that this breed of fly will come out in rainy, overcast, or foggy weather, which helps to pinpoint the day Sandra might have died. He uses the development stage of the larva and studies the weather of the time and is able to deduce when she died. Another important fact to know about these flies: they do not lay eggs at night. So, knowing all this, they could tell when Sandra died. So now they know that based on all of this, she was alive Sunday night, July 17th, but had died by Monday, July 18th.
Hey, Kristen,
Yeah,
did you hear that?
I sure did.
Do you know what that means?
Oh, I do, and I'm ready.
Okay, goggles on,
Yes.
jacket on.
Buttoned up and ready to go.
All right, let's head into the forensics lab for this week's deep dive on forensic science. I wanted to go into a little more detail on the science of how insects helped us solve this crime. So, flesh flies, as they are
Ew.
commonly known, they come from a family or genus of flies known as Sarcophaga, as Kristen stated. And these are really powerful forensic tools because their entire life cycle is very structured, measurable, and most importantly, predictable under known environmental conditions. So, unlike some flies, flesh flies don't lay eggs. They deposit live larvae directly onto a body in a process called larvae position. Okay, so that single detail removes an entire unknown variable from the timeline. There's no waiting period for eggs to hatch. The clock starts the moment the larvae are deposited. From there, development moves through 3 larval stages called instars. The first instar begins immediately.
Okay.
The larvae that are deposited are small, translucent, and begin feeding right away. Under typical conditions, this stage, the first instar, lasts roughly 12 to 24 hours. But in hot desert environments, it can compress closer to 8 to 12 hours. Number 2, they then molt into the second instar, the second phase. This is a slightly longer stage that generally lasts 18 to 24 plus hours. Though, again, heat can shorten that window to around 12 to 18 hours. Feeding becomes more aggressive, and the larvae increase in size rapidly. Now, the third instar is the most important for forensic analysis.
Okay.
This is the final and largest feeding stage, lasting about 2 to 4 days under normal conditions, but potentially only 1.5 to 2.5 days in extreme heat. The oldest larvae on a body, those in the most advanced stage, define the minimum time the body has been available for colonization. Once feeding is complete, the larvae enter a wandering phase, leaving the body to try to find a dry location to pupate. They form a hardened casing, and then inside that structure, they transform into adult flies over several more days. So these flesh flies are strongly diurnal, meaning they are only active during daylight hours, as Kristen mentioned earlier. Why is that? They rely heavily on vision to locate a host, detecting contrast, movement, and exposed tissue. In darkness, that ability drops significantly. So they're not unable to function at night, but their efficiency and likelihood of locating a body are dramatically reduced. That's why it's said that they really only deposit the larvae during the daytime. So for forensic reconstruction purposes, again, we go with the assumption that larval deposition is tied to daylight activity. So in this case, investigators found larvae in the third instar stage. That alone suggested 2 to 3 days of development under desert heat conditions. But because those larvae could only have been deposited during daylight hours, the starting point of that development was anchored to the first available morning after death. So that combination, growth stage plus behavioral timing, right, that diurnal pattern, really tightened the timeline from days down to a very specific window of hours. It indicated that the victim had to have died overnight because the next sunrise allowed colonization to begin. And that is this week's deep dive on the forensic entomology used in this case.
That was fascinating. And I'm never fascinated by bugs, but I'm always intrigued by like the names they give like species and things like that. So these flies are referred to as sarcophaga.
Sarcophaga, yes.
Okay. So I'm wondering if it's directly related to the wandering phase. The wandering phase leaving the body to pupate, forming that hard case like a sarcophagus.
Oh, yeah.
You know? So that's I've taught many units on ancient Egypt. So I'm very familiar with what a sarcophagus is. So, but that's what it made me
that
think
makes
of.
sense.
Like if that's how they tied the name into that stage of life for the icky little bug.
Yeah. Yeah, you're probably right.
Language,
Look at you.
kids.
Look at you.
Language
Language
it's all
arts.
about language. Yes.
Language arts teacher.
See that? All right. So now that the police have all this information from our bug boy, they can go after Ronnie. They get his timesheets from his job, where it was shown to us to be a Pep Boys, by the way, and he was not working the day that Sandra went missing, and he had no alibi. I just want to interject here. As somebody who lives alone, there's a lot of times I don't have an alibi. I mean, I'm not out committing crimes, but it's very hard sometimes for me to kind of like, well, he had no alibi for what he was doing last night. You know what I was doing last night? I was sitting on my couch watching The Pit for hours, and nobody could, corroborate with what I'm saying, but that's what I was doing. So maybe I just need to start like letting people know, hey, guess what? I'm on episode 9 of The Pit, just so in case something ever happens, I can't be accused.
Maybe that's why so many people post every little thing that they're doing on Facebook as a status.
Which makes me wonder how many crimes are actually being committed by people we know. Anyway, they figure, the police that is, and we see this all via a very blurry reenactment. It was like almost like a dreamlike quality to it, that he was able to, he picked her up, he gave her the El Centro line, he turns off the highway to, quote, pee, and he attacked her, choking her until she passes out. He removed her clothes, and he raped her with his hand.
Oh,
I know. Ew, 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 ew. And then he just hustles back to the car, his hand, his shirt covered in blood, and drives off like the fucking piece of shit that he is. When she regains consciousness, and again, this is what the police are thinking happened, she tries to walk to safety. She was disoriented. She was losing a lot of blood. She walks almost a mile before she eventually falls and dies. And District Attorney Jeff lets us know that her death, quote, had to be a tough one.
You think, Jeff? You think, Captain Obvious?
I fucking can't with this guy.
Another green shirt.
In the end, it was the bugs that saved the day, since they were able to determine what the detectives couldn't. Science, kids! Ronnie was tried and found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to 28 years to life. I've always wondered how they come up with some random amounts of time. 28 years, 17 years. Why not just round it up? 30 years, 20 years. Like, stop with the... Anyway.
Yeah, these sentencing guidelines seem like very mathematical, the way these happen. Yeah.
I don't get it. But you know what? I don't want to understand. I don't want to ever be in that situation where I have to understand that. Ronnie, he continues to claim that he's innocent, but don't they all? He is still a suspect in 14 unsolved murders, and he is currently incarcerated in California. And I checked his records. He has been denied parole at each hearing, and his next hearing is February of 2028, when he'll be about 80 years old. And look, I just hope he rots there.
Hear, hear. Agreed. All right. So, Kristen,
Yes.
This is the part of the show where we rate the episode on a scale of 1 to 10 DNA strands based on our assessment of both the investigation and the episode itself. So, Kristen, why don't you start us off this week?
Okay, this was a hard one because, the bug thing, while gross, was fascinating. But here's what I'm noticing. They spend so much time on so much other stuff that the ending is very anticlimactic. It's like, boom, he was found guilty. Like a little follow-up. Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm like in the minority with that. I want to know more. But anyway, okay, so I am going to give this one a 7. I would have scored higher, but I really feel they need to pull back on the incredibly graphic images. And we've spoken about this. I understand it's a true crime show. I understand what I'm getting into when I watch something like this. However, I am also somebody who feels such empathy to the victims and their families. And nobody wants to be flipping through the TV and seeing an image of their dead sister lying on the road the way we see in some of these episodes. So that's my reasoning for not scoring it higher. I felt the science involved was so brilliantly used. I am, as we know, not a science person. So the fact that they were able to use a bug, a squirmy little worm, to figure out when she died and then tie it to their suspect, I thought was brilliant. So I'm giving it a 7. You would have scored higher, Forensic Files, if you had just, stopped showing the same picture of poor Sandra. A little dignity for the dead, please.
Yeah, and I'm gonna score this actually lower than that. This one gets a 5 for me. Honestly, for many of the same reasons that you gave, just way too overuse of footage of our poor victim Sandra.
Yeah.
They showed her body way too much. They showed close-ups way too much. And to your point, they get to this point and they sort of just like rush everything in like the last 10 minutes of the show. I also don't think that I don't know. I didn't feel like the explanation of exactly how the insect stuff worked was that well done. I don't think it was necessarily the clearest explanation in the world. I think it could have been done in a way that was a little bit clearer. I feel like some of the stuff that they focused on didn't really help us to understand exactly how that worked. And the other thing that bothered me a little bit is while they used it to solve the crime, I would have liked to have heard just like a little bit more about the other specific evidence that was used in this specific case and how it tied together. I just didn't feel like they kind of tied it together quite well enough for my tastes. So yeah, for that reason, I give it a 5. It really wasn't one of my favorite episodes. I had a hard time actually. I don't know. I had a hard time getting through it. So yeah.
Yeah, I did too. And another thing that I've noticed, and I understand what the show is. They're focusing on how the crime is solved. I get that. But I'm also a person who's always wondering why these people do what they do. And we never seem to get that.
Yeah.
You know, like, why is this scum of the earth attacking these women the way he is and doing what he's doing to them? I guess that's more of like a psychiatry kind of a show and not a forensic science kind of a show. But I don't know. I'm somebody who wants all loose ends and questions answered. So
yeah.
I don't always get that.
No. I definitely. And you know what, too? I feel like it's funny because I've never watched this show with such a critical eye before.
Yeah, I get that.
Because I feel like it's always sort of been on, and I've always watched it and enjoyed it. And when I'm sitting here with a very critical eye, I feel like maybe I'm being a little bit harsh. But one of my observations, though, is because I've never necessarily watched it in order, right, from season 1 to season whatever. It was just always I turned it on, and whatever happened to be on was on. I wasn't paying attention to what season it was. I think part of this also is a little bit of the show kind of finding its own way, and kind of developing into a rhythm and a structure.
I get that.
Because by and large, I actually, even though I didn't review episodes prior with a critical eye, I don't remember some of these same issues from episodes that I've watched. Like the things that are bothering me, I never noticed before. So am I not looking at those? Did I not look at the episodes with a critical eye? Or is it just that like over time they kind of perfected the formula and kind of had a little bit of a better balance of things? Because obviously they got the formula to work because it was a very successful show that ran for a really long time.
Sometimes they just have to find their way, kind of like us with our podcast.
Exactly. So thank you for your patience. So yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see actually as we progress through this.
I do too.
How it evolves.
Yeah, and I'm purposely not watching ahead. Yeah, I'm watching as I go to prepare for the show. So yeah, I too am very interested to see how they develop down the road.
Yeah. And a lot of these episodes too, these that we're watching right now, are ones that I haven't seen as much of. So I almost feel like when they air these things on some of these streaming platforms.
Yeah, I don't see season 1.
Yeah, like they may hold back some episodes, and maybe they're kind of holding back some episodes that kind of didn't have that winning formula down pat. I don't know. Just a thought.
Guess we'll find out as we go.
We shall. All right. So that's it for this episode of Forensic Fails.
Where the science was complicated, the narration was intense.
And the reenactments somehow managed to raise even more questions.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again real soon.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Goodbye.